This video is brought to you by Roofing Business Partner.
Ooh, too much loss here. Let's fight this legally versus paying.
That opportunity, it's like winning the lottery.
Absolutely.
If you're born here, you already won the lottery. Yeah. What's more freedom than getting on the plane, I guess?
Because I feel like there's a lot of people that are born here that don't really realize what amazing benefits being an American is.
It's where we don't see the future, when we're desperate, when we only burn out when we don't know what to do or tired of doing something like the true full-time job.
Because negativity could drown you down and could suck the energy out of you, leading you to burnout.
What's your story, brother? I know you're in the web development today. You came from restoration. I want to hear your story, your journey, all the way from you starting your first job and how you got today.
Awesome.
Now, it's a little bit longer, but our audience needs to meet you first.
Yeah, how much time do we have for the story part? Well, I think it's important to start a generation behind, because I think we have something in common. I was born in Romania. Dad came from a village with no running water in communist Romania. And I love telling this story specifically, as I think I'm a byproduct of the American dream. So my parents, when communism fell in Romania, they essentially started selling foreign goods in Romania. And that's how they met this American guy who was selling pens that were misprints in America in Romania. So imagine like Kodak, was misspelled. He would sell those pens in Romania. My dad would sell them. And the guy randomly applied for this thing called the diversity visa. And my parents ended up winning. They had 6 months to pack up their bags and move to the States. They won the green card. And that's kind of how our story began. And I like kind of highlighting that just because, again, I feel privileged to be American. So
a lot of people need to hear that, because people need more appreciation for this country. Yeah. I just traveled to Jamaica last week, and
I saw that.
I show people this passport is so powerful. People just take it for granted. If you were born here, you've never been anywhere, people say oh, this country goes to shit. Yeah, it's not perfect. I'm pretty sure you don't like a lot of things. But we appreciate it because that opportunity, it's like winning the lottery.
Absolutely.
If you're born here, you already won the lottery. Great start. Talk to me about that visa. What type of visa was it?
So it's called the diversity lottery, so diversity visa.
Okay.
So essentially back in the 80s and 90s, people could apply for this lottery, and what you won was the right to get a green card.
So it's literally a lottery.
Exactly, yeah. So you would apply, and they would screen people to make sure that, they're not convicts and stuff like that. But otherwise, you'd win that, and then you had 12 months. And I know my parents had this whole battle. It's like, do we go, do we not? Because they started from the bottom in Romania and worked their way up there. And it's like, do we want to start all over again and move to the States?
With that being said, how do you feel about what's happening with ICE and deportations right now?
I'm torn on that subject because I can see both sides, right? Like, part of me feels like, hey, you should find a legal way to get to the States. But the other part of me feels like there's not many legal ways that you can come and live the American dream. So I could flip it both sides. And then I think where I get super torn is where there's, families that were born here, like kids that lived here for 6, 7, 8 years, or people that contributed to American society for a long period of time, but now they're getting sent back. But again, the law is also the law. So I kind of go back and forth on both, and I respect both sides. It's a tough one, right?
100%.
I wish there could be a way we could create more programs to bring the best of the best here. It would almost be great to treat being American as a privilege and not just, hey, you're born here, you get it by default. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that are born here that don't really realize just, again, what amazing benefits being an American is.
I think more work visas and, strict rules to them. Like, hey, here's your work visa, but you will be deported if you violate this.
Exactly.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, and paths, if you serve in the military, well, if you fight for this country, you should be able to. You know what I mean?
100%. So, what was your first real work experience? Not first job like McDonald's or it's not, but first real experience where you're hey, I'm building career here. This is real job and something I can commit to.
I mean, I never really had a real job other than a car wash. Okay. And I think that was kind of career-like. So I started when I was 15, drying cars at a company called Delta Sonic in Downers Grove. They're 13 location car wash company. And eventually I got promoted into sales. So I was, advisor 1, 2, 3, and I kind of worked up my way to being an assistant general manager at that facility. They couldn't promote me to general manager because I wasn't 18 and they sold tobacco. But I think that was the only job I really had.
Then how did you get into restoration?
Well, that's a longer story, but my father, when he moved to the States, he wanted to find different ways to put food on the table, typical immigrant story. He had a friend who was a subcontractor of a restorer, basically. So it was in the city of Chicago. These companies like Busy Bee, Leeds, they would literally fist fight over who gets the fire. So they would fire chase, the fire trucks would put out the fire, and then these guys would fist fight over who signs the public adjuster agreement to sign the loss. And then those guys would then subcontract.
Is that competitive?
Yeah.
When
Chicago is still the same way.
Like 20 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah, but even now. Like right now, you go, like the suburbs operate differently, but the city of Chicago, like you're getting, you have all these ethnic groups, and these companies will deploy 20 to 30 freelancers that are all of the same ethnic group of where the fire is. And they're literally harassing to get them signed up into a public adjuster contract. Then they'll go and, wait the 5 days until there's no cancellation. Then they'll push the paper, fight, the insurance and stuff like that, which I think there's credit to. And then they'll subcontract to a subcontractor. And my dad was essentially a sub of a sub. So this other Romanian guy was a subcontractor. My dad ended up being a sub.
Lots of middlemen.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So he did all this subcontracting work. And then eventually we had this idea of what if we become the GC, right? Every single immigrant story starts with, hey, I don't want to be all the way at the bottom of the food chain. I want to work my way to the top. Yeah. So, and my dad was like, I don't know how to sell fires. I was like, hey, I sold car washes. So how hard could it be? So then, yeah, I was straight out of high school, started fire chasing. Had no success with fire chasing. That was, literally like listening. So for those that don't know what fire chasers do, it's kind of like storm chasing, but you download like a scanner app for the fire departments. And you basically listen to the scanner app and you get an address for where a fire was and you show up there, and it's kind of like pitching storm damage restoration services, but it's very immediate on the spot. So yeah, that's kind of where that journey started.
What happened to that company? Is it still in business? Is your dad still there? How did you grow it? How long you've been doing that?
Yeah, so we started, I guess, being the GC in 2014. My dad and I still own the company. He's still the face of the company, the president. We have a GM that runs it, 90 or so employees, 8-figure restoration company, a couple million of EBITDA. And yeah, it took us basically 2014 till today. We got to about 8 figures, call it about 5 years in. So
describe that business, how hard it is. Like, what's the highs and lows of restoration business besides it being cutthroat?
Yeah, cash flow is a big problem within restoration, specifically on the emergency service side. So if you look at our business, there's 4 layers to it. There's emergency services, there's contents, reconstruction, and then we also have a little roofing division too, $2 to $3 million of roofing. So on the emergency service side, you show up in the middle of the night, you do all this work, and then you have to bill afterwards and get paid afterwards. So it could be a simple job like a board up, or it could be like tearing out stuff, putting air movers, dehumidifiers. And the problem with that is you do all this work and then you have to wait 60, 90 to 120 days to get paid. And that's what's really cutthroat, because if you don't know your numbers, you're basically riding this roller coaster where you did a bunch of jobs, but then you're waiting on insurance. It's kind of like if roofers were to do the roof all the way up front without the ACV payment, and then they would wait 12 months to 16 months or whatever to actually get paid. So that's like the hardest part, I think, of the business. Then the recon division is basically putting everything back together. And again, there you have to deal with insurance, very similar to a roofing job. Contents is essentially like a moving company for restoration jobs. So if you have all the furniture in the property, you have to move all the furniture out to be able to dry the property. And then roofing, I think you know that game and your viewers know that game very well. So,
what was your role at the end in your restoration business?
At the very end, I was basically managing the department managers. So I held the title of general manager, and then eventually stepped away. We hired a general manager because that's when I started Albee, the software company. And then that went bad. EBITDA went ploof. And then we fired that general manager, brought in somebody else. And now we're back on the up and up. So
what went wrong with the general manager? How do you hire general manager for?
Well, I think that's where,
trust.
Yeah, it's been a beautiful journey, my father and I, and just the ideas and such. But I think that the best performer as an individual contributor isn't necessarily the best manager. So we had a really good estimator that we promoted to emergency service department manager. He did okay-ish. And then when we promoted him to general manager, he just had never done it before. And I think in general, we want to give people like growth tracks and such, but you end up growing a company that outgrows the people. I mean, a lot of companies end up outgrowing the business owners too. One of my mentors talks about the rules of threes and ones, like at $300,000 a year, $1 million, $3 million, $10 million, $30 million, there are all these little cliffs, and your $10 million general manager is not going to work at a $1 million company and be successful. And your $1 million general manager or production manager isn't going to be successful in running a $10 million operation. So you're constantly having to play this. You're promising employees growth, right? But then if you put in the wrong employee, or if you promote the employee for the sake of promoting the employee and they haven't done it before, then they can't take ownership over the outcome. So
you're good at fire chasing.
yeah.
Give you that.
Fire creating, right? No,
Fire.
I thought about arson at one point. No, just kidding.
There's actually, it's very common. It's very common in the immigrant community. I personally know people who've said, like, I've heard a story and like they got busted. Yeah. Because people don't realize, like, how often does that happen, by the way? Like
arson?
Yeah.
Pretty often. And they catch you. Like,
yeah, they will.
Like they do a whole investigation, and they have like super high-end technology. They can detect if there's accelerants or not. So
what will happen to the claim if it was arson?
Well, it depends. So like I had a story where the son, so it was a mother who had a 21-year-old son. They were very strict of the Islam faith, and the son kind of went a little rebellious and had some issues with the pressures of the Islam faith. Ended up saying, hey, he was sick and tired of it, and basically doused the entire house down with gasoline and lit it on fire. That claim in that case was covered because the son had that incident and the mother owned the property. The son ended up, I mean, arson's a class X felony. You go to jail, not really great, but the claim ended up being covered. But if you as a property owner, intentionally light your own house on fire, typically it would not be covered under the insurance policy. So if they catch you, and they're pretty good at catching people. I mean, in order for you to burn down your own house, you have to like use some sort of accelerant, unless you want to do it the accidental way. But like the accidental fires that happen like are very unlikely. You know, like the blowtorch to the, 2x4. Like those are very unlikely. Like even if you intentionally tried to light your house on fire with a blowtorch on the 2x4, it doesn't really work very well. So
fast forward to tech. Yeah. Talk to me about your software company. When did you come up with the idea? Yeah. And what was your journey? Because so you started like working with your hands, washing cars, then working with your dad, blue collar, and now you're in tech. Have you ever thought about you being in tech?
No. If you were to tell 10 years ago Alex that this would be the life that I would be living, I'd laugh in your face. Like I would have never thought. But the Albee story started essentially, so in restoration, like in roofing, you have, Job Nimbus, roofer, whatever, modern-ish tech, right? Imagine like the only option was like an AccuLynx like option, right, in restoration. And that's all like we really had. We had like Next Gear Solutions Dash, which ended up getting bought by CoreLogic, the insurance carriers, which owns Symbility and such. And then we had Restoration Manager, which got bought by Verisk also. And these were like legacy tech built offshore. And really for us, it was causing us the problems of like, we didn't have a mobile app. We didn't have like anything that was usable. So we couldn't capture the data to run our business. So Albee started as a what if, like what if we could just build our own system? And I don't know how it actually succeeded, because like there's so many roofers and restorers that say, oh, I'll build my own tech and fail. But we actually had a portal called 33 Mile Radius, where it was like a lead portal where calls would come in and there was a phone call recording and a note. And I was like, oh, that's a cool concept. What if we built our CRM or job management system just like that? And instead of like a little notes field, it becomes a project file. And I think where I succeeded is I went to one of my buddies from college who was an engineering manager at another software startup. And I pitched him the idea. And he bought into the idea. So he basically moonlit and built it with a couple of offshore people, but like he was basically in charge. And then I think the other part of the success was I decided to partner with him. And at first, he asked for 33% of the company without putting any cash down. It was all my cash and stuff like that, just to lead this project. And I said, okay. And then eventually he bought in so much that he matched the cash that I put in, and we became 50-50 and started Albi. So I think there was a little bit of like the stars aligning, because there was no way I, as a contractor, I might know the best for the industry, but I know nothing about product development and such. And then we realized that a business could go, we could sell it to other contractors, and we realized that we needed capital to actually build the product, right? Because our initial budget was $450,000. It didn't go very far. So we went and started looking at VCs. 99 doors later, zero. I think you try to fundraise too. It's brutal. Nobody believes that restorers believe how big the market is. Like, they're not worthy of tech. Why would you bring tech to a blue collar world? It's not white collar. They're small. And then eventually, I don't know, we applied for Y Combinator. I don't know if you heard of Y Combinator, and we got in. And
you did get in?
Exactly.
I applied. I didn't get in.
Yeah. And that was like another crazy,
was
the
it
stars
worth it?
aligning. Y Combinator was worth it from the sense of the aura that it created into our company. The actual like networking, it was during COVID. So
they give you like
networking
$500K?
Yeah, $500K. So it's like $300,000 for like on an MFN safe. So it's basically like whatever valuation of the next round you raise, it goes into. And then they give you $150 for 7% of your company. So essentially you're giving like 10% of your company for about $500K. And you go through this incubator where they teach you how to run the venture world and stuff like that. And the previous cohorts were all in person, but this was all via Zoom because of COVID. So I think we didn't really get that much connections and stuff like that. But then at the end of the program, they have this demo day where you pitch to their community of investors, and that went bananas. Like we went from barely being able to get one investor in to multiple term sheets on our seed round. And then, we raised $2 million on our seed round. That's where I met Joey, who's one of my business partners now. He invested the first $1 million. And then we did a Series A. Bessemer and Palm Drive are both looking at the deal and competing term sheets. And we just closed our Series B, actually, recently. We just announced it today, actually.
So you raised $25 million.
Right around, yeah.
What's the one thing you wish someone warned you about before raising money?
Warned? I think as entrepreneurs, we don't give ourselves enough credit. And like my relationship at the beginning with investors was they're super smart, they're up here, and I as the entrepreneur am down here, so I'm bowing down to them. And it wasn't until one of my mentors, Clayton Mask, who he founded Infusionsoft, sold it to Thrive, Keep, it's what it's called now. He told me like, look, man, the investors just have money. It's a commodity. It's dirty, stupid money. It could literally be printed more of tomorrow, like the government can. You're the one who has the petri dish. They need to put the money into your petri dish for it to multiply.
It's a good way to put it.
Exactly. And like a lot of times I was going to investors expecting them to have like the real world operation experience and like, hey, I have this go-to-market problem, help me out here or whatever. And all the investors try to say that they're a value add investor, and they have degrees of value add, but I think the truth is the entrepreneur is the most valuable part to the equation. And if the founder or the entrepreneur doesn't grow or leaves or whatnot, like they truly hold that leverage. And I think I wish I would have been taught that a lot earlier on, because I think, again, entrepreneurs have very low self-worths compared to who they truly are, at least venture-backed CEOs that I've met.
Talk to me about airplanes.
Yeah, what about them?
When did you decide to learn how to fly? And why?
That's a funny story. I had an ex-girlfriend in high school. We made out by some planes at this little airfield or whatever. I saw the planes. I was like, oh, cool. Her grandfather was a pilot or whatever. So it kind of like sat in the back of my head. And then eventually, once I started making a little bit of money, I signed up for a flight school and started learning how to fly. And I went on the first Discovery flight and took the plane off, and I got the bug. I was like, wow. So I eventually got my pilot license, and now I use it for business. So my private pilot license, which allows you to fly in like visual meteorological conditions, that took about 80 hours. The minimum is like 40, but I didn't consistently do it. And then my instrument rating, which is like a bolt-on license, took another like 60. So about 140 hours, about call it 2 to 3 years.
It's not too bad.
To get to the point where...
I think some people take that to drive cars.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and talk about America, like to bring it back. Like there are other countries where you can fly planes, but like just the freedom of the system to literally get into a plane, fly VFR if you want, to go for a skyline flight around the city or get $100 hamburger, and like the network of all the airports. Like I landed at an airport 15 minutes away from here. What was it called? Crystal. Yeah, 15 minutes away
I
from
know
here.
that airport really
Yeah.
well.
So it's like
It's also
that's
Best
the
Eye
American
Code,
dream.
like a little bit down Best Eye.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another one just south here, Flying Cloud, I think is like 25 minutes away from here. And it's just like the community and stuff and American dream, right? It's like freedom. Hop in a plane and go places.
Yeah.
So.
What's more freedom than getting on a plane, I guess? Do you still do you still run 2 companies?
4.
How are you not burning out? What's your work-life balance?
Ooh.
How do you manage time?
Well, oh man. So
What's the most time-consuming? I know you create content, you
Yep.
run companies. What else do you do? And how many hours do you work a week, you think?
I happily work probably 60 to 70 hours a week. But I believe burnout doesn't happen when you work too much or too hard. I think burnout happens is when you focus on one area of life more and hold it to a higher standard than other areas of life. So right now I've got 4 pillars of life, which is health, wealth, love, and spirituality. And my idea is if you want to be a venture-backed CEO, you have to be the venture-backed equivalent of a husband and a father. Because if you start treating that area to a less standard than your wealth, right, that's when conflicts start occurring and such. And I started learning that. I mean, I had a bunch of life stories that taught me that. But on the health front, like I was in the best shape of my life, had just raised a Series A at Albeware, end up getting COVID, end up being in the hospital for 4 weeks on like the positive air mask. So like 1 step below the ventilator, not knowing if I'm going to make it. And at that point I said, hey, look, I don't care about the wealth. I don't care about anything else. I'm just going to focus on my health, and started going through this transformation. And then I realized, whoa, when I started holding my health to a higher standard, I showed up in business as a 10 out of 10. And then I showed up in my family life as a 10 out of 10. So I think what I do is the recipe is that all those 4 pillars every single day, you play all out, you leave it all on the field in all of those different pillars. And what that looks like is, sure, there's a 3 to 4 hour deep working block for work, but there's also sweat every day, which is a mantra. And then there's also being back home for dinners. And for example, if I'm gone for more than 3 days, wifey and baby come with, and so on and so forth. So you basically create your day around all of those needs being met versus just one of them.
Well said. I recently heard phrase about burnout, that burnout does not exist. Like if you love what you do, if you see the future, if the future is bright and you're optimistic, you'll never burn out. Yep. You know, like if you know you're gonna sell your company for $500 million, you're gonna work 90 hours a week, you're not gonna burn out. It's where we don't see the future, when we're desperate, when we only burn out when we don't know what to do or tired
Yep.
of doing something like the true full-time job.
Yep.
And it's also when we do non-meaningful work. Like imagine if you, like they say it's suicidal, people literally lose their minds. If I tell you dig this hole, and then tomorrow I say dig hole here, and then put this sand inside there, you will want to kill yourself. Why am I doing it? Because it makes no sense. Imagine every day you take it from here to here and vice versa. If you don't have meaning to your work, you will go insane. But people also, if you go to work and you don't know what you do there, you will have that burnout.
Absolutely.
But big entrepreneurs don't have it.
Yeah.
What are your pain points that led you to build Albi? Like mainly, like pain points as far as I know, the capital probably. You had 450K, it wasn't enough. Raising capital is one. What other pain points?
Oh, pain points that we encountered while building Albi? Oh man. I mean, there's a bunch. So when you build a software company, identifying your ICP, right, your ideal customer profile, is like a huge pain point, and like we've learned a lot of lessons with that. So there's various segments of the market, and certain segments don't necessarily need to use the software, and you'll go and spend a bunch of money to go acquire those customers, and they're not ideal customers. And a lot of times when you're venture back, you deploy a bunch of money, and then you realize that more money didn't necessarily get you into a better situation. So that's one pain point. Finding talent is another pain point and rather challenging to do. but your entire business, any business relies on building the people to build the business. So recruiting top talent, we're in a suburb of Oak Brook within Chicago. We're very big into all in person, but obviously that creates a constraint. So now we're moving downtown Chicago to hopefully open that up.
You earlier said that a lot of business owners, a lot of roofers have ideas about software. I've seen it so many times. People pitch me all the time, probably pitch you all the time. I have this idea, like, and it's going to change the world. It's going to change the industry, and no one has it. I'm like, yeah, people have it. Like, this thing does that, right? Why, though, so many contractors are not successful with that idea?
I think the ego comes into play, and they think that they could do it alone. And there's that whole proverb of like, if you want to go fast, go alone, but you'll probably go fast into a ditch. Or if you want to go far, go together. One of my greatest superpowers, also why I don't burn out, is I find people to go together with, right? So Albie, I've got the co-founder. Longview, which we could talk about a little bit, I've got a co-founder on that, right? Remex Thera is always me and my dad plus the GM and such. Evolve, which is a coaching program, there's somebody else. Like I always like find people, align them around a vision, we partner together. And I think it's hard, even I felt it, like when Shmuel came to me and said, hey, I want 30% of the company to code it, like there was an initial like, WTF, bro, like I'm paying you salary, I'm doing this, and you also want X percentage of the company. Like that's bananas, right? And what I notice in the roofing industry and the contractor industry, a lot of people come from nothing. So the ego, like you're rewarded for, like the ego manifesting itself is like a big reward, right? You go from $0 to $10 million, you did it, you did the hard work, you did the hustle, you did it all alone. Why do you need other people, right? But then it's like, well, what do you know about tech, right? So, and then also it takes a long period of time. And I don't know if a lot of people genuinely are in it for the right reasons. Like the other idea is like, why does a company burn out or an idea fizzle out? It's because you don't keep putting logs on the fire. So it's like, ooh, I have this idea that I have this revolutionary roof measurement tool. How many of those came out and how many of them actually succeeded? The ones who actually succeeded were people who for 5, 7, 10, 15 years put logs on the fire, versus the one that fizzled out. We're like, an idea, let's try to do it. We got to the first step of failure, we gave up.
What kind of problems are you solving for your contractors? Like they say, like, you know, you're going to be as rich as problems you solve. Like what kind of problems you solving?
The three ones that we're looking at is lead flow, cash flow, and talent. So on the lead flow side, it's how can restoration contractors bring in more work? And specifically, I'm a little anti-TPAs. There's this concept of a third-party administrator, kind of like Mad Sky in the roofing space. In roofing, they don't really have power. In restoration, there's like 20 to 30% of work goes through there. So my thing is like, how can we help restorers get non-TPA work, right? So insurance agent referrals, plumber referrals, online marketing, stuff like that. So we have a full CRM suite that helps them there. On the cash flow side, in restoration, you do the work first and get paid after. So our first thing was how can we streamline the workflow to get paid faster? Now we're getting into fintech. So we built like check scanning tools to basically be able to handle the endorsement process and get the funds deposited in right away. We brought credit card and ACH to the restoration industry. And I know in roofing, it's like, well, AccuLink says AccuLink's pay or JobNimbus says JobNimbus pay. In restoration, nobody has anything pay unless you do QuickBooks, but then it's like one person in your company running all of your payments. So we're bringing payment solutions like that. And then on the talent, we have this thesis of the Netflix of restoration means high revenue per production employee. So that's like under the talent thesis. And we're basically looking at how can we give employees the tools that they need so they can actually produce more revenue. And those are like AI tools, workflow tools, stuff like that. And what's funny is at Longview, what we're building is a tech-enabled restoration company. So it's kind of like proving out we're basically eating our own medicine, if that makes sense. So
it makes perfect sense. How do you feel you're already different from other CRMs? Because everything you mentioned is very similar. The problems that CRMs in general try to say. What's the true differentiator?
Yeah, so I think it's a trifecta. At least in the restoration space, there's no other founder that cares about the space as much as we do, right? That's period, full stop. You go to Next Gear Solutions or you go to Restoration Manager, like they don't care about the restorer. In fact, they'll go preach and call it the claims industry or even the way they label the industry, right? Nobody is going there saying, this is the restoration industry, we are restorers. So I think that's one part of the trifecta. The second part is nobody in our side of the market truly has a product team, right? Like everything's offshore, let's build in wherever and let's build as minimally as possible. Let's not innovate. Let's not iterate. Again, this is just on the fire and water damage restoration space. Like Job Nimbus, I think at one point was the example of the ideal software in the roofing space. I think after the founders kind of started stepping away, they didn't care as much about roofers anymore. I don't know what your take is on it, but I don't know how much they care about roofers right now in that space. And then the third part is the capital. Nobody else in the damage restoration space or the fire and water restoration space has raised the capital and deployed the capital within the space. Like all the 25 million was all primary capital, no secondary, no paying on investors, whatever. All of that's getting deployed into the space because we believe that restorers are worthy and they deserve that. So,
how big is the restoration industry?
So we just did a study. It's between 35,000 and 50,000 damage restoration contractors that do fire and water.
35 and 50.
Correct.
Like, what's the dollar amount? How much insurance companies pay?
So it depends on how you look at it. Anywhere from 80 billion to 246 billion. It's really hard to triangulate.
Very
the
similar
numbers.
to roofing. Roofing is like 60 billion.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why is it so big? Is it big? What's the biggest tickets? I guess if it's commercial, like.
Yeah, but even residential. I mean, if you think about it, roofing industry covers all the exterior perils, and actually some roofing bleeds into. Like hurricanes will damage the interior, so you have the roofer that might get the exterior, but there's interior work. But like fires are just as likely, broken toilets are just as likely, right? Burst pipes and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that happens on the inside of the home. And sure, roofing claims are all related to a storm rolling through and hail and wind. Interior claims are all related to fires, smoke. Every single toilet can potentially leak and cause damage. Anytime, for every 5 times a plumber goes out, there's a water damage cleanup that needs to happen afterwards. So yeah, that's why it's so large.
What's the hardest to grow in the industry? Like in roofing in 2025, we have a lot of PE firms, we have insurance companies make it harder to pay, we have a lot of competition. Do you have a lot of competition, a lot of people coming in, or is there lack of competition?
Well, no, I think like there's not as low barrier to entry as roofing, because roofing you just need a truck and that's it and a contract. In restoration, we just incubated a company. It costs about $250,000 to get started. So, there is that barrier to entry, and then you have to buy equipment, ship it in, set up a truck, and all this stuff to go to market. But yeah, I mean, there's new restoration companies popping up all the time. And in fact, what I see with the market is 35 to 50,000 companies that are stuck at like 1 to 2 to 3. It's a very fragmented market. There's some PE rolling into the space. It's only like made a little drop in the bucket. There's more that's coming. So that's definitely a headwind. Insurance is being tough. We're seeing the same thing, which I don't think is a bad thing. Deductibles getting higher. Insurance companies are starting to strategically move away. I actually would love to see in both sides a more retail market. And I know in roofing is a little harder because nobody really cares if their gutters had a couple of dings to file a claim. And there's a lot of roofers that, I wouldn't say manufacture damage, but like hyper focus on this one thing. And there's a lot of claims that get paid out that like the homeowner doesn't really care about. In the interior though, it's like if your house is flooded, you got to get it done. But there is that tailwind of it's getting harder. Insurance companies are paying less. They're moving up higher deductibles, which requires the industry to become better salespeople, to become better at helping the industry, helping the homeowner. I think there's an opportunity for capital like financing and consumer financing to move into the space that hasn't really happened. And also restorers, I always tell restorers you should look at the roofing industry and go to the roofing process conference, RoofCon, or Win the Storm. So I think roofers are really, really good at sales. They're not the best operational per se. Restorers, the fire and water guys, they're really good at operational and nitty gritty. They suck at sales. So it's like, it'd be interesting to see roofing companies and restoration companies merge together, have the roofing owner, which is very, I call it in my book, Jack, right? Making it rain. And then have the restorer, the George, basically make sure that the promise is delivered to the customers and such.
Interesting take. You mentioned earlier how cutthroat the market is and that everybody's chasing, running, right? But besides that, how do you advertise? What's the wildest referral source or marketing strategy that you tried and actually worked?
Yeah, so in my book, I have the Restoration Millionaire Method, which is just the step-by-step process that I'd recommend for anybody to do if they were to get in the industry. But the first one, when you first start out the business, you don't want to focus too much on sales because you got to go hire a crew chief, build a van and stuff like that. So I recommend people start with online marketing. Water damage restoration keywords are probably the most expensive. I think I heard once they're the third most expensive. The other two are auto damage attorneys and workers' comp attorneys. So that just shows you how many people look online for water damage, because one of the ways is, hey, I have a flooded basement, help. The problem with online marketing is it plateaus at a couple $1,000,000 a year just because there's so much competition, right? Everybody's doing online marketing. It's low barrier to entry. Then after that, I recommend people to get into referral sources and pick one and go after it. So at Romextera, 80% of our work at 2 years ago came from insurance agents. So we have a route marketing strategy where basically we'd market to insurance agents, give them the value prop of we're an extension of their claims team, and they would refer us work. And in fact, that's how we got into roofing. And I started going to the roofing conferences preaching that. I know Matthew Danskin does that now too. I bumped into him and I was like, this is a genius idea. But we started a $3 million roofing division because the agents...
He's going to be here tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that'll be great. The agents would call us all the time and be like, there's a door knocker knocking on my customer's home and I don't know if I should trust them or not. They're promising all these things. And we'd come in there and be like, yeah, Mrs. Jones, you actually have wind and hail damage. Do you want to sign this? Right? And we started a roofing division that way. And then some of them we'd be like, no, there's no damage here. Like, it's just BS. So the next referral source, agents, and then you'd go into like plumbers. Plumbers is crazy. That's a pay to play. So there's referral fees that exchange. The restoration contractor will pay a plumber $500, $1,000 to even $2,000 for a job. Yeah. So there's that. On the commercial side, you would do route marketing to commercial property managers.
So is it very common for plumbers to charge for leads and for like referrals?
Yeah. So there was this company called More Floods that kind of brought it to the market about 10 years ago. And then all these companies started doing it. But yeah, in every market, there's plumbing heavy restoration companies that, they'll pay out plumbers to refer. Because think about it. Like if you have a busted pipe, you might call a restorer, but you'll probably call a plumber.
First.
The plumber will show up, they'd fix the pipe and be like, everything's wet. So then they'd refer the restoration contractor.
Like you're going after firefighters, you should be going after plumbers.
Exactly. Oh yeah, and then firefighters, we do a couple million of work off of, they're called dispatch centers. So essentially, the dispatch center dispatches the fire trucks. The chief goes out, puts out the fire. They'll call back to the dispatch center for ComEd and NICOR to come cut off the electric and cut off the gas, and then they'll also call for board up. And that's like in the non-shady areas of the market. So some markets are non-chase, where the fire department will literally not let anybody come and solicit. They want to protect the homeowner, and they'll have a list of 10 people on rotation, and they'll just call in the person, and they'll come in, do the board up, and then once you do the board up, you can then pitch them, the rest of the work.
Have you ever have ethical dilemma about chasing like firefighters, for example, because people just go through this horrible experience. They did not plan the fire, it just happened, and now they have to deal with the contractor who wants the job.
Yeah, but I think going through the fire department's the best way around, because at the end of the day, that person needs a service right then and there, right? Because if your house has a fire, the fire department blows out all your windows, stuff like that. If you leave the house open, well, one, people can come in and take your valuables. Two, it's little kids can come in and get hurt, right? So you have to protect your property from further damage. Furthermore, there's a lot of holy smoky fires that if you get to the fire right away and you clean up the smoke and the soot's not sitting on metal surfaces, it won't damage it and it'll prevent further damage. Versus if you leave it on for a long period of time, then now everything's totaled. So the homeowner needs service right then and there, and I get it. It's high pressure, but it's kind of like if your car is totaled, it's not shady that the cop will call out the tow truck to come and pick you up, even though there's money that changes hands. And I'd actually much rather have it that way than have 5 towing companies show up and fist fight over who gets the tow. And in some markets, that's the reality. And between the two, I think the most ethical is a list of pre-approved vendors, because it's kind of like the directory model where the fire department will request that you have workers' comp, GL, all this stuff. And if anybody complains, the fire department, the contractor's kicked off.
What's your strategy and vision for YouTube and social media?
Yeah. That's interesting. So I think on the restoration side, we started Albear's YouTube channel under the thesis of propelling the restoration industry forward. So bringing out of the box ideas or out of the industry ideas to the industry. Because I think there's always this preconceived notion of what the industry is. So if you'll talk to a restorer, they'll say insurance controls the industry. It's like, no. Statistically speaking, only 20 to 30% of claims go through TPAs. The rest don't. So we control the industry, right? There's no money to be made with fire departments. No. Check out this podcast where this is proven, right? So the idea on the Albie front is literally, let's put out content that can shift the perception of the industry. And if anybody, we read They Ask You Answer by Marika Sheridan, it's like, if anybody feels called to reach out to us for a demo or whatever, great. There's actually not super high ROI. I don't know if we're doing things wrong or whatever. Everybody knows about Albie. Everybody knows about the industry. My book sold 9,000 copies, yet I don't have a direct way to be like, oh yeah, those 9,000 copies brought in X about $1 million back in. The grander picture of what I'm trying to do with social media is I think like the only brand that will be with me for sure when I die is my name, Alex Duta. So the goal is to build that up to give back. I think it's an awesome way to shift perspective and such. And that's why I do the Alex Duta stuff. I think we exist to build the best version of ourselves and then use that best version to pour it back into the world.
Do you see yourself as content creator?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I spend a couple $100,000 a year to have media guys post stuff online, and yeah.
What's the journey looks like? Because a lot of people think about content creation. Like I know, I'll speak for myself. When I start doing it, perception is like big ego, like yourself, right? And for me, it could be further from the truth. Like I hate myself on the camera. Like I cannot watch the same video like twice. I'll watch it within 24 hours, and 2 weeks later, I'm like, why do you talk like that?
Yeah.
Why do you do, right? So, and in the beginning, it would take me 2-3 weeks to do one video, but you have to do it. There's no other way.
Exactly.
Like, it's modern world.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard also, if you let the ego run that show, yes, the ego is going to talk about how horrible you sounded and stuff like that. The ego is going to be like, oh, you only had 400 views on this. Was it even worth it? And stuff like that.
It's more insecurities.
Exactly. So those things come up. And I think it's the ultimate personal development journey is going out there and getting to the point where you could post something authentically who you are, and not give a crap about what other people say. But the journey is rough. I mean, you first start out with putting lipstick on and makeup, the equivalent of that, right? Yeah. And then you eventually work your way to where you just don't care. You're just you.
And then you start having opinions, conflicts, haters, trying to get under your skin all the time.
Well, the reality is you inspire or you irritate. So you attract the people that belong in your tribe, and then you irritate those who don't.
And if you want to be really successful, you want to be polarizing, like Andrew Tate, your countryman over there. Yeah. What's your take on him?
I don't know too much about him, to be honest. Yeah, I don't follow too much.
But that's exactly the formula, kind of like. Yeah. And I hate to say formula, but when your content polarizes people, when you have people who love you and people who hate you, and they fight, debate, or you have haters, like I feel like you have to have some, like nobody in the world have 100%, like even, like I love a lot of brands, right? Like, so you travel a lot. So they're beautiful hotels all over the world, right? Like I use Marriott. Look at the most expensive hotels out there, like Trump Hotel in Chicago, awesome. Go read reviews. Not a single hotel will have 5 stars, right? It'll be like 4.3, 4.2. And I was just curious early on, like, who gives hotel like 1 star and for what? Like,
exactly.
Right? Because I cannot find enough bad things. Do they mess up things sometimes? Yes, they do. Sometimes you go in and you hate the room and they didn't do something, they didn't clean. Okay, go out, talk to them and say, can I get another room?
Yeah. Exactly.
But nobody's perfect. Like you can build awesome brand, the most awesome brand, and people still gonna freaking hate you.
I agree. I do think there's a distinction though. So like you were talking about the Tates and like polarizing, and obviously we could see, even the Trump wave or whatever. There's people who actively seek to polarize because that's all they have. And then there's people who have something else and then also in their comment feed get haters, right? So like one of my mentors is Dan Martell, which I think you met at WealthCon. Or like you even look at like Alex Ramosi or Cody Sanchez, right?
All of them have hate.
Yeah, they have some haters, but they're genuinely they're not riding the waves of hate, and they're not riding the polarization for their fame. They're there to pour into their community, and sure, they rub off some people the wrong way. And then there's I don't know, I don't want to give examples, but sure, like even like, you know, the Donald Trump, Joe Biden dichotomy or whatever. There's people who like instigate stuff, right? So that way they can ride the highs. I personally like to not instigate. I like to pour in, and if I accidentally piss somebody off, I don't really care. Like I'm not going to take it personally.
You can't please everyone.
Versus, exactly. You can't please anyone. You're always going to inspire or irritate. But also, like, instead of going into negativity, like focus on positivity. Because negativity could drown you down and could suck the energy out of you, leading you to burnout, versus positivity has a win to it.
But I would tell everyone, becoming a content creator it's absolute shortcut to self-development.
Yes.
Because until you start looking at yourself from this, like number one comment I'm getting on my channel after interviews is like, man, I would interview a person. And the moment I publish that podcast, I'm getting text message, man, I'm fat, I should go to the gym. Because once you see yourself on the camera, like I've done it myself, like I know if I'm doing this, I know if I don't sit right, like I can tell if I haven't been working out prior to that podcast or I didn't sleep well. Like you have to be so dialed in and on your A game if you want to do it continue, or you will hate yourself. So there's no other way, and you have to learn not to care what people think about you, be true you. That comes with the experience, but the more you do it, the better you become at it.
Yep. It's the reps.
But
and then if you like transpose it back to leadership, like what's building a big company? It's being able to articulate a vision or a mission or a statement and have people buy into it, right? So like the same stuff you do in content and on camera, you end up, that's your job as a CEO, as a founder of a big company, right?
100%.
Yeah. So absolutely. I think everybody should. And I think under also the vein of like your greatest superpower lies right next to your deepest wound. Like we all exist to basically help the people that were once us from the past, if that makes sense, right? And I think everybody's story is unique. And if you share it, some people think it's selfish to share. I think it's selfish not to share because there's somebody who can connect with that story. So like in your case, right, being from Russia, being from Siberia, being an ex-roofer and such, the roofing community can connect with you. Whereas if I try to say the same message to the roofing community, I might not be able to help them, right? Because they don't necessarily relate with me.
100%. Let's go back to industry trends. Yeah. Where's the restoration industry heading today?
I think, and I wrote about this too on the AccuLynx acquisition on the roofing side, I think roofers and restorers, it's an all-time high in the amount of leverage that they have in the claims ecosystem. And if you like sit out and watch, like sure, whatever, AccuLynx got bought, NextGear got bought, so on and so forth, Data Faucet, yada, yada, yada. But if you really look at the fact that an insurance data provider paid a more than Service Titan multiple for a, no offense, but not a prime product for an industry under the illusion of we have data, what's that telling you? It's telling you that the roofers and the restorers have some sort of leverage or control that the other side of the table is trying to get. And the only way they can get that is by paying double what the public markets would pay for a premium product, right? It's literally like the restorers want your car, the insurance companies want your car so bad that they're offering you a 50x multiple on your shitty Buick or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that vein, like that's how I look at the industry. I think we're at an all-time high where we've gained leverage. And I think like my mission is to like highlight that, bold that. Because again, under the negativity, you can go in and be like, they bought my data and stuff like that. Like we've built an integration with Xactware and stuff like that. Like I know like they're just pitching this data illusion up to their boards. They're not doing anything with it. Like roofers don't even use their software. Like you can't even go to a roofer and be like, well, how much EBITDA do you have? Or what was your cost of goods sold on this job? So like the data is irrelevant,
I think
but the desire for it.
I think they're playing ahead because, PE and all the firms, and they want to control the process. So now money coming in and I think they want to be ahead of it. Like if we buy this data, because the company is going to keep growing. Like there's a lot of companies who are grandfathered in, who've been bought recently, and now if you see the data, the company going to keep growing. The roofing business going to keep growing, but now they see the data inside.
But I also am finding that most PE aggregators within the space are in this restorer or roofer centric and not insurance centric, right? So the first wave in the restoration.
Both. You have players.
You have both, yes.
You have players who definitely do storm restoration and stuff, and you have
like the BlackRocks of the world that own the Serve Pros and stuff like that. They kind of fall into the bucket, and that was kind of the first wave of PE. But this second wave of PE that we're seeing the Alpines of the world and so on and so forth, which are genuinely just trying to create enterprise value in the space. They don't really have an affiliation with the insurance companies. Like Alpine Investors built Vertex, I believe it is, in roofing. Right now they're building Guardian in the restoration space. Like, sure, there's the quote unquote cons of traditional PE or whatever, but they're not necessarily affiliated with the insurance industry, right? Like a BlackRock would be. They're just there to build a multi-billion-dollar EBITDA company that they could share, sell to hit their 30% IRR for their investors.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. In your opinion, what slows down adaptation and restoration? Like, why so many contractors slow to adapt to technology?
Yeah. I think I think technology in general has been tough, right? Like in both roofing and restoration, and hasn't been the most easy to use, adaptable technology that solves the biggest pain points.
It overwhelms contractors.
Exactly. And if you rewind back to like legacy tech, it's like, why do I have to go in and put all this information in all these different places when it's more efficient for me to just keep everything in my head? So I think that's one. And two, I don't think there's data points around the tech-enabled thesis. So like what I'm starting to see is that there's this new type of company emerging that's like a tech company and a restoration or roofing company had a baby, and it's like a tech-enabled company. And it's happening in all kinds of services. If you go to AI-rollup.fyi, there's 90 companies that have raised money in blue-collar brick-and-mortar industries, from accounting to restoration to roofing or whatever, under an AI-powered roll-up thesis, right? So the concept is tech companies trade at like 10 to 20x revenue multiples. Roofing and restoration companies trade at 3 to 10x EBITDA multiples, right? Well, why does one trade, like Netflix trade so high, and then like something like Blockbuster trade so low? Well, this is tech not enabled, key man risk, not very efficient, clunky, so on and so forth. Tech companies, even though they don't produce an EBITDA multiple, right? They're very scalable. You build the tech product once, you could replicate it over and over again. Well, I think you could bring both of those worlds together, and that's why I think most roofers and restorers should start thinking of tech, is if you build a tech-enabled business. And what that looks like is not just CRM. Like, we're talking about AI agents that are actually starting to empower your team members, so that way Bobby in the field can focus more on taking care of Mrs. Smith and less on doing the paperwork and the clicking and so on and so forth. And what would take 3 hours before would now take 30 minutes, 5 minutes, so on and so forth. And what you're going to start seeing is revenue per production employee is going to go up. The average EBITDA margin of a restoration company is going to go from 15 to 20% to 30, 40%, right? It's going to be less owner reliant, and value is going to go up. And I've seen data points of like currently 10 to 20x EBITDA multiples on tech-enabled restoration companies. In fact, I'm one of them. We just raised that Longview on a 19x multiple. So that's what I'm trying to pitch back to the industry. It's like ultimate wealth could be built. Instead of selling now to Vertex or whoever you're going to sell in the roofing space, build tech-enabled, get QSBS. I don't know if you're familiar with QSBS. We can qualified small business stock. You basically don't pay any capital gains tax when you sell your business, as long as you hold the stock for 5 years. So like what I'm telling everybody is go tech-enabled, get QSBS, build a kick-ass company over the next 5 years, and sell it to a different type of buyer. And that's where like true wealth's going to be built in the space.
So name different type of buyer in the roofing space.
So like right now in the roofing space, I think if you're going to sell your business, you're only going to sell it to like some sort of fund that created a thesis around roofing, right? And then there's probably a handful. And when you fundraise or when you want to sell an asset, you want to create a market around that asset so you can get multiple people to speak of what's the price on that asset. Well, if you can only get, like, a traditional roofer can't go get, I don't know, KKR to go buy their business, right? Because KKR doesn't have a fund that is dedicated to roofing per se. So then they're limited to only the 5 different PE aggregators that could potentially buy their business. But if they built a different type of business, meaning tech-enabled services company, now it opens up a pool of way more private equity companies that have transacted tech-enabled services. Things like Neighborly, for example, that also owns a roofing franchise, is an example of a tech-enabled services company, right? And when you do that, right, you open up that market of other types of buyers. But if you stick to just calling your company a roofing company and all it is, it's the angle of roofing, well, then you're limited to just PE companies that buy traditional roofing companies. I don't know if that was a good explanation or not.
No, it was. Where's the biggest opportunity for AI in the space, in your opinion? Everybody talks about AI, but not everybody like really using it. Like, use very basic.
Yeah, so I think if you look at every single person, every single employee, they have broccoli and they have chocolate on their plate. Chocolate is the stuff that lights them up, they absolutely love doing. The broccoli is the stuff that they hate doing. So I think
I like broccoli.
Yeah, well, there you go. You're different. And that's the other thing. Like, your broccoli could be my chocolate and vice versa. But I think the biggest opportunity for AI is literally eliminating tasks that people hate doing, so that way they could, quote unquote, buy back their time to then spend that time in things that light them up. So it's kind of like the concept of a VA, right? I know you're friends with Latif over at Boss Up Solutions, or even like Dan Martell wrote the book Buy Back Your Time, and Tim Ferriss wrote the 4-Hour Work Week, which is the concept of find other people to do the shit that you don't like to do. But it's find now robots to do that stuff 24/7 without being managed, without complaining, and the definition of done is consistent all across the board. And there's some like limitations. Like, I think right now, like with ChatGPT 5 and stuff, like anything, like I don't know how you do your content writing, but I've gotten to the point where, an article that would take me 2 hours can now take me, 5 to 10 minutes. Now I'm not just copy pasting. I've learned how to co-create with it, but it could do a lot of research. It could do a lot of stuff, right, to speed up the process. I think, for example, job file auditing. Nobody loves doing job file auditing in any company, whether it's roofing or restoration. So with N8N, I built a job file auditing bot that basically looks through Albi files, and it basically looks over dates, it looks over notes, it looks over documents, and makes sure that that file, for the stage that it's fitting within compliance. And then it sends out an email for the stuff that doesn't fit compliance. So that's an example of broccoli that nobody likes doing and wouldn't be done. So why not just delegate that to AI? So right now, all that tedious data stuff is where it's really good. It's not really there in image processing. It's not really there in voice, right? There's a lot of areas of opportunity. It's not going to take a roofing measurement and turn it into Xactimate yet. But yes, you're right. It is coming. And there's some crazy stuff. Like, voice is going to be the next frontier. Voice is probably 6 to 12 months away. Like, full blown, your phones do not get answered by a human anymore. And it's accurate. So
probably, but it's also can be like, Japanese have AI like voice.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah,
it's fun experience, but I feel like people still want personal touch.
Yep.
I think like even like Alexa and we like speaking and like it's all cool.
Yep.
But there's something about human interaction.
Yep.
And I would predict that in the near future, we will pay premium for human interaction. Like,
Absolutely.
you want a person to talk to. Like,
Yep.
We're getting tired of it too fast.
Yeah. Yeah. And like certain things like the human interaction, let the humans do it. But what are all the other stuff in the back scenes that the humans don't like doing, right? And maybe get rid of those things. The other thing with Job Nimbus Voice is I would say Job Nimbus Voice right now is what ChatGPT was like 4 years ago when it first came out, right? People didn't buy into it because it hallucinated, right? Like a rough product doesn't really attract, right? It only attracts the early adopters. Whereas now, ChatGPT 5, like it's gone through so many iterations. Like when it comes to text and data processing, it's seamless, right? It's the best. And I think that's where voice is going to end up being. Like right now, voice is in the early stages. Image processing is in the early stages. You can't really build Xactimate estimates because Xactware's text is so outdated to where you can't really send the files in. But eventually it'll get there.
Video stuff, it's scary how good it is, and like I'm afraid where it's going. Like I'm afraid of deep fakes.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what to believe anymore.
Yes. That is a legitimate fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Because it could take, you're putting out all this content with your face. That's all data points for now an AI to
I
take.
love what YouTube did. YouTube just said like, hey, like we're not gonna accept that. We're not gonna monetize it. So if you don't have your face, if you're not human, like if it's AI content, no. And I see it.
But then how does YouTube know if it's an AI face versus a real face?
Because AI will detect AI. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, what if it gets so good to where it can't detect?
Well, then AI detection will get better.
Okay.
It's gotta
You're
be.
right. There's gotta be. Yeah, because the risk is like all those data points. Like I've started seeing like the AI generated reels of a person.
Yep.
And especially if they're not a very
getting better and
animated
better.
speaker. I saw it was Katie I saw a video of Katie, one of our coaching clients, and it was actually her, but she's not very vocal and animated. I thought it was an AI generated video. That's what it looked like. And it actually turned out to be true, that it was actually her. But on the flip side, I've seen so many realistic AI generated videos that were scams of people. And the more you put yourself out there, the more data people have to replicate your persona.
Let's wrap it up. A few more questions. What old industry mindset or practice do you wish you could change? Something that people are doing, like maybe your dad. Yeah. Maybe what everybody's doing is like, if I can get rid of that, if I can change that.
I think there's a lot of scarcity mindset in our industry, right? Like when it comes to competitors and information, like, oh, I got the secret sauce, I got to keep it here because I'm not going to give it to that person. Or even with money, like people are pulling money out of their roofing business and restoration companies and then putting it into real estate or whatever. And they're just hoarding all these things. And it's like, I don't know, like not to get spiritual here, but I think like money's meant to flow. It's meant to flow through you, right? I believe in an abundance mindset. I believe that you can have stuff and I can have stuff, right? And that could be knowledge, that could be capital, that could be all of the above. We could all serve together. Ideas are not your idea or my idea. Like I don't think, the theory of gravity was Newton's idea. Like it was an intuition that he had. He deserves credit that he proved or disproved the hypothesis, but it wasn't his. He can't take credit for it, right? Like thoughts that come up into our head aren't ours. And like I think our industry is like, oh no, like that's mine, right? I have to hold on to it. I got to be careful with it and such. So that's one. There's a lot more, but yeah.
What's one brutal truth about restoration that no one wants to say out loud?
I think this is both for roofing and restoration. With or without insurance, there's an industry that exists.
100%.
Because the average American property owner, both commercial or residential's greatest asset is their property. And whether damage happens to that property damage is always going to happen to that property. Yep. And they're always going to want to repair that property with or without insurance. So I think by us just labeling ourselves as the insurance industry or saying we work with your insurance and such, it's just a self-limiting belief that's getting created on the industry. That I think by us just letting go of that and not giving them the power,
the work
we could exist.
To be done.
Exactly.
Who cares who pays for
We're
it?
the roofing industry or we're the restoration industry. And I think in roofing's done a very good job, right? Like you got scammers too, but you've also got awesome people that are fighting the fight and so on and so forth, and a lot of retail people that are doing things right. In the restoration industry, for whatever reason, like it's gotten to the point where there's still debates on, is this the claims industry or not? It's like, no. Like let's not shed light here, because like everything you speak, you create, right?
Agree.
We're the restoration industry. Like insurance companies can literally pull out, and actually they have.
They have.
When Katrina hit, it's like they pulled out, and what happened?
California
People
right
rebuilt. California right now. Ooh, too much loss here. Let's fight this legally versus paying. And what happened? Restored. Those places rebuilt, right? So I think that's like the biggest thing for people to understand. This is not the insurance restoration industry. This is not the insurance blank ecosystem. We're a part of it, just like a plastics manufacturer is a part of the pharmaceutical industry. But it'd be silly to go to a plastic company and say, hey, yeah, you're a part of the pharmaceutical industry. Why? Because you make plastic that then gets converted into syringes.
100%. Good take. What's a tech trend that's overhyped?
I'm going to put my foot in my mouth here because we just talked about AI, but I also think on the flip side, AI is overhyped too. Like the people that go down the surface level, let me just like spray and pray AI. Because you're right, like there is this human and human connection that is needed. And yeah, I think there's a lot of people that like AI consulting companies, they'll just throw in the AI buzzword. And actually you look at the capital markets, people invest in AI just because it's AI. I think we must always go back to what's the application, what's the problem that it actually solves. And actually any tech, any person who's buying tech needs to go back and say, I'm not buying the car because of the feeling that it's going to make me feel or because so-and-so did it. It's like, what's the fundamental problem in my business that I'm trying to solve here, right? Am I going to Roofer or EagleView because so-and-so said to go to it? Or do I fundamentally have a problem with my measurement process, right? So I don't know if that answered your question there.
It did.
Yeah.
I agree with you. What's the one moment you can name that made you almost quit? Do you remember?
Well, there was many. I mean, oh boy.
Every year?
Yeah.
Every month? There's more.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound brutal, but like there were times I didn't think I was worthy of living because of the stress and the dissatisfaction. I got to the point where I was making money, but like I was burnt out and didn't have any happiness in any of the other places in my life to where I'm like, is this what success is? So I think I've had like 2 near-death experiences. One of them was, where I didn't think I was worthy of living. And then the second one, I fixed all the love. I fixed all that. I got married, had kids, saw all the joy of my life. And then COVID came in and hit. And that was also like a pretty low point within my life. But yeah, I think those 2 moments, it's like when you do the easy stuff, making the money, but you lose the meaning, you then are like, okay, well then all this is pointless.
What's one thing about success that most people wouldn't agree with you? Like that like you believe in it, like this is what success is. And most people are like, no, this is not a success.
One thing, I'm limited to one thing.
We can name a few if you want to chat.
Okay. One of them is, I think, like, depending on what game you play, if you don't play a zero-sum game, meaning if you play success as freedom, abundance, joy, gratitude, right? If you label it that way, it's not a zero-sum game. Everybody could be successful. And it's not like if I'm successful, I'm taking away from your success and so on and so forth, right? So I think that's one versus and it's all about the game that you choose to play. If you choose to play the fame game or the success means I'm president or whatever, that's a zero-sum game, right? Yeah. That's like, in order for this person to become president, he needs to beat me, right? So it's all about, I think, the game that you choose to play and the way that you frame it. But if you search for joy, gratitude, happiness, abundance, right? And you go back to spiritual principles, I think that it becomes a place where everybody could have it, right? And you don't need a lot to feel any of those things.
Why are we so competitive in business? Because we often say like business is a sport. Yeah. But in sport, you want to win. There's a first place, second place. It's very competitive. Yeah. We're bidding in the jobs. Like you're a storage company. Yeah. You have 20 contractors coming after one fire. Yeah. Like there are situations where you win, you lose. It is kind of zero sum, and some would argue that this is success and this is not success. You lost. If you do it 20 times in a row, like now you win the year and you lost the year.
Yeah, but like if you zoom out, there's a huge pot. Like sure, if you look at it on a one-on-one cases in this specific market, in comparison is the thief of joy. This company versus this company, you now have competition and you have that zero-sum game. But when you zoom out, how many other roofers, like let's just say like this company is 20 million, this company is 19 million, right? Well, you could also look at it as there's 2 companies serving customers, following these values. Those owners are, they have money, they're providing for their families, so on and so forth. There's all these employees and so on and so forth. But then when you zoom out, you could also create a room of those people, right? So it isn't a zero. Everything that can seem like a zero-sum game is only a zero-sum game if we create it. And if we add the comparison in that. But when you zoom out, like you can't fill a room with roofers that are successful and incredible husbands and fathers and have employees that are also building wealth, right? There's a lot of them out there.
But all right, let's apply it to the tech world, because I think it gets complicated with the higher level, right? So if you look at the, like sales forces of the world, like your Job Nimbus versus IQ-Links, in the bigger you become, like Amazon versus like, or Netflix versus Blockbuster, like 2 players, 3 players in the big world of business, it's one will eat another out. Like when it's too big to fail per se, or like why some businesses just keep growing and keep eating others out, because they're like there's a speed to the top. Like you right now, you're building your company, and you can't have 10 of you. Like sooner or later, someone will take the throne. I mean, you can have multiple players, and all will be happy.
I think you'll always have. I mean, even in roofing, there's always going to be new players that are going to acquire customers and stuff like that. And I think the perspective shift here is, I don't know if the numbers should be the game that matters, and it's, did you accomplish your mission? And I think there could be players big and small that accomplish the mission.
100%.
Right? So it's like, to me, what I respect about Service Titan isn't necessarily the fact that they went IPO and created enterprise value, but it's all the employees' lives that they changed. They changed an entire industry. They changed industries completely. But at the same time, there's also a bunch of other software providers for the HVAC and plumbing.
Actually.
Exactly. And I don't think everyone could be everything. I don't think anybody could be everything to everyone. I just don't think so. I think there's always going to be opportunity. And sure, there's always going to be a big player from a financial standpoint. But why does that matter? I mean, after a certain point of, there was that study too, even like if we zoom in, after $100,000 a year, apparently happiness starts dying down. And apparently after you make $550,000 a year or even $1 million a year, it's like, there's no more difference, right? So it's like, we want to keep comparing and playing that game, but it's like, okay, if we achieve to where everybody makes $200,000 a year, who cares that there's one person that's making $1 billion or 200? It's kind of like we're in the same boat.
Sure.
So
Comparison of thief of joy.
I think that was a big lesson. It's like comparison's the thief of joy.
You've been in both contractor mindset and you've been around contractors, and now you're in the tech world. It's the last question for today. What's one contractor mindset that just doesn't work in the tech world?
Profitability.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest WTF moment. It's like in tech, there's this beauty that revenue is reoccurring, but there's this con that in order for you to earn the right to that reoccurring revenue, you do have to invest. So there's a long, I went from 20 to 30% EBITDA. My dad and I started off with credit cards to seeing millions go down the drain to build this product to be able to bring it to market. And you can't go to tech expecting profit in the short run, because you won't be able to invest, right, and build the product that then earns that reoccurring revenue. And then also to keep up with your customers, so that way they don't churn and stuff like that, you have to keep reinvesting. I mean, acquiring a customer is expensive in any subscription-based business, right? Like if you want an account executive or an SDR to go close a deal, right, the salesperson of AccuLinks, right, they're paid maybe 15 to 20% of the first year revenue, but that contractor's coming in and paying on a monthly basis, right? So you need to pay up front to acquire the customer, and then there's a payback time. On average in tech, customer acquisition payback, for example, is 12 to 14 months. That's how long it takes to pay back. Then on the R&D side, if you want to stay and be the prime, the best product's always going to win, right? And sure, there'll be success stories, like AccuLinks wasn't the best product and it was sold for $2.4 billion or whatever, right? But I think always the best product is going to be the one that eventually will win.
Thank you for flying in on your. How big is your plane?
Well, just to clarify, I don't have a plane. I rent planes currally. I'm in the process of.
How much does it cost to rent a small plane?
Depends, from $200 an hour to $400 an hour. So
how much did it cost you to fly here?
So probably round trip here, call it 4 hours times $250, about $1,000 for 2 of us.
1,000?
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
So it's almost the same as you can go cheaper main cabin.
Yeah.
But if you would do
Delta
Sky
first
Priority,
yeah. No, on regional stuff, that's the other thing. Common misconceptions. Oh man, flying private is expensive. we like even if you charter like so some people go to the bougie route, right, and they'll go to a charter company and charter like a big jet. But there's this plane called the Pilatus PC-12, right? It's a single engine turbine aircraft, right? Pressurized, goes up to the levels, whatever. You could seat 10 people on it, right? So 2 pilots and whatever. The thing goes for like $2,000 an hour. If you divide it by 8 people, that's like what? $250 per person per hour. You go to South Dakota and back, right? It's almost like these regional trips, they're almost like traveling on Delta or whatnot.
Very cool. And it's faster check-in,
You just go to the airplane and hop in and fly out. And like right now, if I want to
There's no
stay
security
and
and
have coffee
stuff?
with you, no. It's the hangar. You go to the hangar, hop in the plane, and you fly. So right now, if I want to have some extra coffee with you, I could stay longer. If I don't, then I can, hop in.
What do you think about that Honda? Honda came out with a plane.
Yeah.
Did you see that? That looks very cool.
Yeah, the Honda Jet you're talking
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of owner-operated light jets that have come to the market. So like Cirrus has the Vision Jet, which is a single-engine jet. Honda has the Honda Jet. Phenom has like the Phenom 100. And yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's the ideal business jet. You get a license and you can hop into the jet and fly like you would fly a car. Like, it's awesome. And like for the entrepreneur, like for me, again, bending time is very important and stuff like that. Like I would not be able to get in here, do this, and get back and home for dinner or to tuck my kids in. Because Delta's flight schedule, you think, okay, maybe Minneapolis, I could.
Yeah, Minneapolis.
Right, but if it wasn't Minneapolis, if you were in Duluth or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Duluth would be tougher.
Exactly. So, and even Minneapolis, I don't know. Do you think there's a...
Oh, there's a lot. It's 15 minutes. There's like 5 flights a day.
Oh, okay, to Chicago. Yeah, cool. Makes sense.
Very cool. Well, thank you for making time.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, brother.
This is great.